Hello, I'm Todd Phillips, the editor of Canadian Auto Dealer. I'm here today with Dennis DesRosiers, past president of DesRosiers Automotive Consultants. Dennis, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for the invite.
Well, first of all, before we get to the matter at hand, how are you doing? How is retirement treating you?
Well, when COVID hit, my staff at DesRosiers Automotive Consultants kind of in unison pointed at me and said, "You got a country home. You get the heck out of here, and we'll figure it out." And that's 3 years ago now. And I was intending to work until I guess they put me 6 feet under. But after being at my country home for a full year, I just couldn't handle going back full time. So I retired, and now I'm a gardener. I do a lot of woodworking in my shop. And which is quite pleasing to me is that I chaired the local foundation down here, deeply involved in charity work. And I've raised, easily $500,000 for local charities with my woodworking and all the other stuff that I do for them. So it's a great life from that perspective. And I guess that's one of the reasons why we're here today is to talk about this new endowment. I'll let you fill in the
Sure.
group of what we're doing here.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. And I'm glad to hear that things are going well. But one of these passions, I guess, and your charity work is dovetailing in to your work in the automotive industry. You're one of the key forces behind the Maryann Keller Memorial Award that is being offered up to first-year female students entering the Automotive Business School of Canada at Georgian College. So tell us about the drive to create that award.
Well, my first job in the early 70s was in the Interior government and got the assignment to do a paper on the auto industry. And I was reading about Maryann in the various automotive journals. So I called her up and chatted with her, and we became friends for life. She was invaluable. And a lot of people know her by name. She was the first woman who actually shattered, would be the best word, the glass ceiling from a gender perspective. I think, as most people know, this industry for decades was male dominant, still is to a degree, but it started to change and change quite radically as a result of Maryann being the auto analyst of the global auto analyst of the world, won the Analyst of the Year award 12 years before the turn of the century, before moving on to other elements in the auto sector. She was noted for not staying behind her desk and studying the industry from books or journals. She actually was one of the few Wall Street analysts who got out of New York and visited dealerships, vehicle companies, suppliers, etc., interviewed them, and became really knowledgeable. Wrote a few books about the industry. Many called her, excuse the language, a badass. She wasn't afraid to take on the various issues of the time. At one point, she was kind of General Motors' biggest nemesis and turned into one of its biggest supporters with time. But it is her inspiration, and she has inspired dozens and dozens, I believe, women to choose the auto sector as a career. And that's the kind of the beginning of this initiative that we've started. Since I knew her for life and was very close to her, I wanted to do something. And so I went to Georgian College and met with all of the Georgian College people like yourself and your colleagues, and we decided to establish this endowment.
And so far, it's raised a substantial amount of money, and the idea really is to encourage people in the industry, dealership personnel who might be reading this watching this video to pony up and help contribute to the fund. So over time, it can provide financial assistance to even more women entering the industry, right?
Well, exactly. I believe that we're approaching $400,000, which some may think that's a lot of money, but with endowments, only the interest and investment returns on that money is used for scholarships. And I believe we have enough for one or two or three. I'm not really sure yet what the returns are. And but the need is much greater than that. And so I want to get it a lot larger. That's one of the reasons we're doing this video. And what a lot of people don't realize also about Maryann is that she had a real soft spot for Canada. She spoke annually at the Financial Post Conference, which was the day before the Toronto Auto Show. and dozens of other conferences. She seemed to never say no to Canada. She was an advisor to many dealer and dealer groups, suppliers, even OEMs up here in Canada. But perhaps her biggest accomplishment, and this isn't well known, she kind of kept it to herself, is she, along with myself, by the way, were advisors to the federal government on the auto sector for almost 2 decades. And she was absolutely critical. I can say this because I was sitting next to her in the Canadian government supporting the various initiatives and explaining to ministers in plain language and from a very powerful position the importance of the federal government to help our industry. They were deeply involved in the financial assistance to GM and Ford, but also top to bottom through the industry. And a lot of people don't realize it, but dozens and dozens of car dealers are in business today because Maryann Keller was able to persuade our federal government to help the industry survive, and et cetera, et cetera. And so from that perspective, I thought it was appropriate that Canada take a lead position when she passed away now, which is coming up on 2 years. It's hard to believe time flies. And we've raised this money so far. I started it with a substantial contribution, and some dealer groups have provided a contribution. I'm not allowed to say who. Her family provided some money, and now we're going to the broader sector with the support of CADA, by the way, to try to get this endowment up. There's no reason in the world why we can't get it substantial enough to support maybe a half a dozen or a dozen young ladies or women, period, of any age entering your school. And a lot of people don't realize that Georgian College, maybe you can talk about it, has a number of automotive degrees. It's not just dealer anymore. When I first started with it, it was dealer focused. Now it's top to bottom through all elements of the industry. OEMs hire a lot of graduates. The suppliers hire a lot of graduates. And car dealers obviously have a number of women in important positions as a result of Georgian's work.
Yeah, that's a good point. Certainly, it's become the training ground for all throughout the industry, as you mentioned, from financial, supplier, OEM, dealer, for sure. To get back to Maryann, if she was looking to today, the lens on the industry today, in terms of the role of women versus where she started, I think we're talking 1972. What would she have said about the progress? Are we there yet? Not fast enough? How would she view today's industry?
Well, I don't think we're there yet myself, and I don't think she would think that we were there yet. But as a result of her encouragement, we've made huge progress. I remember many times when she was lecturing or doing things up in Canada where a young lady would stand up and she'd say, "Are you enrolled in one of the automotive programs up here? And, you should establish yourself in this industry. It's a fabulous industry. And I'm proof of it." And so I think she also would say that we've made a lot of progress, but we have a long way to go. And so that's important to keep in back of mind. And one of the reasons that we want to get this endowment a lot bigger.
Any other final thoughts on Maryann? Something we might not know as well about her. I mean, you spent a lot of time with her in boardrooms and analyst calls and such. And I know, speaking of from one badass to another, probably a sense of humor. Tell us a little bit about
Well, she certainly did have a sense of humor. I sat on a board of directors with her and got to know her very, very well. And she wasn't just knowledgeable about the industry, but I mentioned earlier she got up from behind the desk. We would get into various conversations about whatever, and she knew absolutely everybody, it seemed. You could never stump her, Said, "Well, I'll phone, so-and-so and so-and-so." And she knew the presidents and was on personally, as well as from a business perspective, of just about every vehicle company, many suppliers, and all of the dealer groups. It's amazing how much work and her, the depth of her knowledge and the breadth of her contacts within the dealer industry. And so I'll be quite disappointed if dealers don't chalk up a fair amount of cash for this endowment, because I think although it's meant to promote women at any level and any type of company in the industry, I think the dealers have benefited the most from her insights. So far, we've had easily I would say close to half of that 400,000 come from car dealers. And the dealers can afford it, and they need the women. One of the biggest complaints I hear day in and day out, even in retirement, women going into car dealerships and finding out the dealers just don't get it yet. Most do, mind you. I'm not being critical, but there's still a lot of work to do. And I think that's what she would want. That's what Maryann would want. So, $1,000, $10,000 for a car dealership should be almost automatic. And I hope they Google Maryann or the Maryann Keller Memorial Scholarship at Georgian, or use the URLs that'll be posted or the phone numbers, and contribute. The other thing, as you know, and you can tell people if you talk to them, it's 100% tax deductible. There's no admin fees. I'm not in it for anything. Georgian College doesn't get anything out of it. So it purely goes to build the endowment, and the government allows 100% tax deduction as a result. So that kind of lessens the pain. I think most car dealers are in the 50 plus tax bracket. So, a $10,000 scholarship only costs you $5,000. And so, get out there and and do it. I did, and pushing 100 plus car dealers have already done it. Now we know we have 3,500 car dealerships. It'd be nice that everybody did something. So I encourage you to do that. I guess I'm afraid to push this.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see your passion for the industry is translated into your charity work, I guess, in your own local community, and now, nationally on the scholarship that's for a great cause and for a great school. So appreciate your time, Dennis. It was great to spend some time with you. Looks like you're well and enjoying retirement, feisty as ever. So it was really great. Thanks for taking the time out from your country home and your woodworking to chat with us today. So.
And thank you. And I say hi and goodbye to all of those friends in the auto industry. You gave me quite a career, and I really appreciate it. And I'm honored to be part of this industry and part of this endowment. I thought it was the best idea I came up with throughout my entire life. So go out there and support it. Appreciate it. And thank you very much.